Hey, good afternoon, everybody. John here, and hard to believe that we are already in week 6, in module 6 of this class. Every time I teach one of these classes, the time just flies by, and we just pass by these weeks at warp speed. So I hope you're all doing well. I hope that you're able to synthesize this material. I know that when we're talking about legal issues and legal analysis, that unless you're mired in this stuff on a daily basis, that it's not necessarily intuitive. But please know that I'm here to help. Please feel free to reach out. And like I've said before, my main objective is for you to get value out of this class. And whatever I need to do to help with that, I'm happy to do. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. This week, I want to talk a little bit about we're sort of moving past the legal, to a certain extent, the legal part of the class, legal issues, legal analysis, and getting into the ethics piece. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, but I do want to cover just touch on a part in your book on clinical trials and sort of dive into that a little bit. Um, Kind of a timely topic given the everything that's going on with the COVID-19 vaccine, and of course going through its clinical trials at this point. So certainly, to a certain extent, we're seeing some of this in the news. But the clinical trial is just one step in a very long, typically very long and arduous and highly regulated drug development process. It's highly regulated by the FDA. um, I've done investigations of clinical trials in the past, and really just the first couple of times I've done those, just shocked by how many or how highly regulated it is, both at the federal and international level. You've got FDA rules, you've got ICH guidelines, which is more of an international guideline for clinical trials. Everything needs to be approved, including marketing, the selection of the subjects. I mean, everything from top to bottom, approved by the IRB, all the IRB rules that are associated with this. There's actually a really great resource on the FDA website that can give you some insight on the entire drug development process. I found it really interesting. So if you're interested in this, I'm going to post it in the announcement that's included with this video. Just for obviously nothing that involves any of our assignments in this class, but I think it's really interesting. So if you have a few minutes to just take a look at what that process looks like, I would encourage you to do that. Of course, there are ethical issues associated with clinical research, which is why fully informed consent is really critical. And I know I've touched on informed consent a little bit in our discussions in the past few weeks. But and just in my work on doing investigations of clinical trials, uh, informed consent is really important. And informed consent starts with even the marketing the um, of the clinical trial itself, and making sure that the subjects or potential subjects understand the benefits, the risks associated with it. I mean, in fact, it's required to give them uh, a period of time to really contemplate the materials, the benefits, the risks associated with all that, time to ask questions, to make sure they fully understand what they're getting into. I mean, that's really what informed consent is. Informed consent is not giving someone a document and having them sign it right away. That's not effective informed consent. Informed consent means much more than that. And obviously all that is required to be documented. And there are ethical and legal considerations in getting effective and proper informed consent. So, when we get into the ethics, as we get into the ethics component to this class, not just in our milestone assignments, also in our discussion questions, we're going to have a couple of discussion questions involving ethical issues. I break down ethics into two components. One is just societal ethics. So what we collectively as a society deem to be ethical. What are our values as a society? So, things that I put in this bucket, that we as a society uphold as being ethical or unethical, or what are our societal ethical values. Things, I mean, the obvious, like murdering people or stealing from people. We as a society, we've determined that that's not ethical. And so we've codified those ethical values into laws, and now they're legal issues. You know, um, uh, those are the obvious, and I think most of us would agree with that, or all of us probably would agree with that. And then the second bucket would be our individual ethics, and this can vary from person to person. It's based on our personal beliefs, how we were raised, our religious values, our faith, our things that we've been taught, or things that we've um, picked up just in our on our journey in life. We all go through different circumstances, and our journeys are different. And so, as a result, sometimes our ethics are different, and that's okay. So, things like uh, abortion or euthanasia, the healthcare being a right or entitlement, the rationing of healthcare. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg, and some of you may not even consider those to be ethical issues, um, those are more vary from person to person, and obviously are more controversial, because they do affect us personally. And there's no in this class. We're not focused on right or wrong answers, especially on ethical issues, because that's very individual. Everyone has their own opinion. That's okay. So as we engage in these discussion questions in the next couple of weeks, I think it's important to remember that everyone has their right to their own opinion. And while we can certainly um, offer our own opinion, which may be different, we should treat everyone with respect, and and uh, and treat their give respect to their own opinions. Euthanasia is an interesting one that's been in the news over the last several years. I think Oregon was one of maybe the first state to enact a death with dignity law. I know here in Colorado, a few years back, we had a death with dignity law that was was presented to the people as a in the state as a ballot initiative, and it failed. But shortly after that, it was enacted as a statute. The state legislature enacted it. So, these are things to think about as you consider your own ethical values, and of course, for our purposes, ethical values in the healthcare environment. So, as we think through, and I'll mention this again next week in my video, as we think through our analysis of ethical issues, we've been talking a lot about the IRAC method of legal analysis. What's the issue? What's the rule? Apply the facts to the rule, and then come out with your conclusion. Well, ethical issues is a little bit different, where there's not really a rule, but we have, we can harken back to week one of the class and think through some of the ethical theories or ethics principles that we've discussed, such as justice-based or rights-based theory, and on the principle side, the autonomy and beneficence and principles like that. So I would encourage you, as you think through ethical issues, not just in your discussion questions, but also on the ethical component to the milestone projects, to analyze, instead of a legal rule, analyze these ethical issues the same way you would with the IRAC method, but instead utilize and incorporate these ethics theories and principles that we've studied. So let's put those into action here in the last few weeks as we dive into the ethical component of this course. So that's all I have. Excuse me. That's all I have this week. Hope, of course, you're doing well. And again, please feel free to reach out. Excuse me. With any questions, or if you need any assistance on any of the assignments, I'm always happy to help. So please take care, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good one.